sustain itself.
There's something about flying that fast that I think just captures the imagination of folks. It's just phenomenal to imagine flying that fast.
I'd say the main interest you find for the scramjet in the near term would be the military. They would like to have a missile that goes, say, Mach 5, Mach 6, 5 or 6 times the speed of sound, so it can get to a target very quickly and has a lot of range in doing that. You can do that now with a solid rocket motor, but it runs out of gas pretty quickly.
The Air Force is also interested in using scramjet propulsion for super-fast bombers that could strike anywhere in the world with amazing speed, flying more than 10 times as fast as current bombers.
There's no reason that a human couldn't pilot or be a passenger on a hypersonic airplane. Vision vehicles, as we call them, include space access vehicles to take astronauts to the space station or to orbit, and also potentially passenger vehicles, again, to take people to the other side of the world.
Some experts believe the scramjet could usher in a whole new era in aviation.
We entered the 19th century moving at 6 miles an hour, the speed of an animal-drawn vehicle. We entered the 20th century moving at 60 miles an hour, the speed of a steam locomotive. We entered the 21st century at 600 miles an hour, the speed of an intercontinental jet airliner. And if you plot this in semi-logarithmic fashion, you get a nice straight line that indicates we may well enter the next century at 6,000 miles an hour, which is precisely where you see the X-43 really pointing us and heading in that direction.
The X-43 scramjet is carrying on a tradition of cutting-edge aircraft development that goes back decades. And although Mach 7 is a major accomplishment for an air-breathing jet engine, rocket-powered planes were flying almost that fast decades ago. It all began with the most amazing series of extreme aircraft in aviation history. They were called the X-planes, the X standing for experimental. The very first X-plane was appropriately named the X-1.
In 1944, the United States decided to bite the bullet, really, and develop a specialized family of research airplanes, of which the X-1 was first, that would essentially use the sky as a laboratory and which would carry 500 pounds of recording instrumentation and at the same time would also radio very important values that were measured in flight down to ground stations. This marked the birth, really, of a remarkable family of airplanes that continues to the present day, the so-called X series.
The Bell X-1 is arguably the most famous pure research aircraft ever built. Bell Aircraft built 3 X-1 rocket planes for the primary purpose of breaking the sound barrier. For decades, traveling faster than the speed of sound, about 660 miles an hour at high altitude, had seemed an impossible task, hence the term barrier. It literally was seen by many as an impenetrable wall.
This was really brought home in September 1946 when Britain's leading test pilot, Geoffrey de Havilland, the son of the founder of the de Havilland Company, was killed at about 8/10 the speed of sound flying a new swept-wing tailless research airplane called the de Havilland Swallow. The airplane began to pitch violently out of control so rapidly that he could not control it, and within less than a second it had disintegrated and he was killed. This showed that the sound barrier had very real bite.
In 1947, a young Air Force pilot named Chuck Yeager was about to bite back. It would happen at Muroc Air Force Base in California, about 80 miles north of Los Angeles. We know it now as Edwards Air Force Base. Robert Cardenas, another young fighter pilot, was officer in charge on the X-1 program, and he piloted the bomber that carried the X-1 aloft.
I had professors from Caltech and MIT that were out there at Muroc. We had all sorts of people making recommendations, and one of them said, you know, really, we've seen stuff coming in from space explode, whether it was from heat or what. There could be an ultrasonic barrier out there that might just disintegrate or melt the aircraft.
The test pilots and engineers listened politely to the experts and then got down to business. Bell Aircraft test pilot Chalmers Goodland made the first powered flight in an X-1 aircraft in late 1946. But it would be Chuck Yeager who 10 months later would take the X-1 rocket plane to the speed at which it was meant to fly.
Chuck is a human being. but when he gets in that seat and he locks that door, he becomes part of the machine. In my book, he's no longer a human. He's part of that. He melds in as part of that machine.
Man and machine finally broke through the sound barrier in October of 1947. On the ground, observers heard the crack of a sonic boom. Air Force Captain Chuck Yeager and the X-1 had just launched a new era of supersonic flight.
Chuck was the X-1, period. That was it. And I really don't know if anyone else could have done it.
High airspeeds are described in Mach numbers, using a formula named after an Austrian physicist, Ernst Mach. The speed of sound is Mach 1, and Yeager had reached Mach 1.06 on that historic flight. Later generations of X-1 aircraft would fly twice that speed. In 1953, Chuck Yeager took one of them to Mach 2.44. Many more X-planes would follow the X-1, but none would provide more crucial research data than the X-15. The three rocket-powered X-15 aircraft flew 199 flights from 1963 to 1967. Far beyond supersonic, these research planes ushered in the era of hypersonic flight, the term for speeds greater than Mach 5.
We had a 57,000-pound thrust rocket engine that was completely throttleable, the first of its kind, and you had tremendous problems in simply making this a reliable propulsion system. Now,